we will be talking about a framework that I developed to help new private lenders get off the ground running without becoming paralyzed by overanalysis and fear. So I call this the Lend Now framework. And each letter in Lend Now stands for a different component of setting up your private lending business. So for instance, the L stands for legal setup. Of course, legal setup would be the first thing I talk about as an attorney. That's super important. And even just beyond the setup, it's also about just the legal documents that you have in place to protect yourself and to protect your investment. So that's the L in Lend Now. The E is evaluation. Now we have to talk about how do you evaluate your borrowers. You can come up with a list of questions that you want to ask. You can say you want to ask for a credit score if you're lending to individuals. Maybe you want to actually do a background check. Maybe you want to do a credit report. It's up to you. You have to decide what are the important things for you to look for in your evaluation. Now, for me personally, I don't lend to individuals. I only lend to entities. And so I'm typically not looking at a person's credit score or their personal information for the most part. I'm typically looking at, their business, their operations, making sure they're compliant, they're an actual entity. Sometimes they're financials. It really just depends on the transaction and who I'm talking to. And then you have the N, and that's networking. So one of the top things that I hear new lenders talk about is, how am I going to find borrowers? Where am I going to find them? And so networking is going to be one of the components that we talk about. And there's definitely ways to go about this that are not stress inducing. And then we have due diligence. So that's the D. It sounds similar to evaluation, but it's really also about the particular transaction. So if you are lending on a deal that has to do with real estate, you'll have to do your own due diligence on that piece of property instead of just relying on what the borrower tells you. And then we get to the now. So the N for now stands for no to low tech. Now, I am a no to low tech lender. I don't like fancy softwares and things that I have to keep up with and make monthly payments. I like things to be simple and short and sweet. Then we talk about the O in now, and that's only my money. So if you hear about private lending, you might hear about a lot of people talking about pulling their funds together or creating a fund. I don't do that type of lending at this time, and that's not what I teach. I teach people how to lend their own money because that is the simplest and safest way to grow in the beginning. And then lastly, we have the W, wealth building. So wealth building is really about finding ways to make your business operations and lending sustainable and that it grows in a way that is compliant with your goals. So if your goal is to retire in 4 years, you may have to take a more aggressive lending strategy, especially if that's the only strategy you're using to grow your wealth. Whereas if you're someone who's on a 10-year timeline, you may be able to be a bit more conservative on the lending side, and maybe you have more diversity in your financial assets, So it really just depends on your specific goals, but we definitely will talk about the wealth building portion. So that's the Lend Now framework, and we'll get more into it later.